Good evening YouTube, it's 5 p.m. on a Saturday. A lovely weekend today here in Moscow. It's super fresh, I would say. It's been really cold over the last couple of months and we reached above zero this week, so everyone's really happy. I'm standing today on Bolotny Ostrov, Bolotny Island, which is here in the middle of the river between the two different sides of Moscow. Over here is the famous Tretyakhovskaya Gallery, the Tretyakhovsky Gallery, which is really amazing, and I recommend visiting if you're here in Moscow for a while. So today I'm going to be talking about money. Now, I've had lots of questions about Russian money, the ruble, and maybe people want to have a look at it, so I've made a collection. I've found some different notes and I'm going to talk about them when I get back home. So first I want to say that actually the Russian ruble, the ruble itself is the second oldest currency in the world behind the British pound sterling. It's actually had many iterations over the years. It used to be the Soviet ruble, of course, and you see the ruble today in countries like Belarus where they have their own ruble. A currency called the ruble has been used in Russia since the 13th century, and the current iteration was started in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell and the Russian Federation began. And actually it was changed, it was made a lot smaller. There used to be things used to cost tens of thousands, and then people decided that's too much, so they reduced everything by 1,000, and so a 10,000 notes became a 10 ruble note in 1997. So here we have today's notes. As I'm standing here by the river, we can see really cool Soviet imagery here on the side of the river. Stuff like this is all over Moscow, and if you're interested in Soviet history or something, or Russian history like I am, then these little tidbits for Russians are just normal. They're almost everywhere, but for me it's really interesting because Soviet history is really interesting. This is a really expensive part of Moscow to live in. If we see over the river, we see all these buildings which are quite expensive. Actually, this one here has a sign on saying for rent, for as far as I can remember. Yeah, and over here is where the gallery is, and this is a bridge over here, a very famous bridge which is full of love signs. This bridge over here in the background, yep, there, is kind of like the bridge in France, in Paris, which had all the locks on the side, but this has some installations in the middle. Obviously you can't see it from here, but I showed it in the introduction. They have some installations where you can put on your locks, and the installations are in the shape of a heart, which is kind of cute. Yeah. Like many countries with their money, rubles have lots of nicknames. The most common in the Soviet era were kapusta, which means cabbage, which I also know they have in Germany, coal. And the other one that was most popular was bashli, I believe, bashli, which means dough. And of course we even use dough in English, so there's a connection there from Russian to English and even Russian to German. I've also heard the term babki to mean money, and babki means old woman. You might also be surprised to hear that people over here use the word bucks for money, baksy. That's the plural of buck. This comes from the 1990s when Russians were first allowed to possess foreign currency, and so currency kind of got the nickname of bucks. People also here use the word cash. So when, for example, you're ordering something in a restaurant and they come and say to you, would you like to pay by cash or by card? They use different words, but often you'll hear the reply, cash, I'd like to pay by cash. Yeah, so that's interesting for English speakers. As you can see here, this used to be snow and it's kind of turned into ice, and it's quite watery, and also quite hard as well. Yeah, kind of like ice, because the weather's getting a lot warmer here. It's been above zero a few times this week, so hooray, finally, nearly spring. Yes, and it is the middle of March. So the sun's going down here and it's getting kind of cold, so I'm gonna go home and show you some of the money that I've collected here in Russia. So I've managed to assemble most of the notes and coins used in Russia here. And we see these are rubles and they're split into kopecks, which are, and there's 100 in one ruble, like cents in dollars or pennies in a pound. Actually, the lowest coins are 1 and 5 kopecks, and I've actually not managed to find those, as they're incredibly rare nowadays, and they're not used at all as they're worth a fraction, absolute fraction of even a cent of a dollar, so yeah, they're not used at all. In some cases, these 1s and 5s may not even be accepted by stores or individuals, and in 2008 it was proposed by the Bank of Russia to withdraw the 1 and 5 kopek coins from circulation and subsequently round all the prices to the nearest 10 kopek, but that hasn't been a realised proposal yet. They're made of nickel like these. These are the rubles. They're made of nickel like these. Focus, focus, focus. Okay. And yeah, they have a picture of St. George on them. So I'll start here with the 10 kopek coin. See here. So this 10 kopek coin is the same, almost the exact same as the 50 kopek coin. And on the back here, it has St. George. This is quite a dirty one. As in England, St. George is quite an important character in Russia, and two of the highest decorations in Russia are called the Cross of St. George and the Order of St. George, and St. George is the patron saint of Moscow, so yeah, he's quite an important character. As you can see on the front, it's just got the nomination, on the back it's just got the nomination, sorry, and on the back it's just got St. George. Alright, you can't buy anything with these are basically worthless. And it's pretty frustrating when you get some back as change from a shop. Alright, so let's have a look at the first the coins here, the lowest coins which are actually used. So here we have the 1 ruble, we have the 2 ruble, and we have the 5 ruble. These are the exact same design, they just vary a little bit in their size, as you can see. The 1 is smaller, the 2 is a bit bigger, and then the 5. Yeah, on the front they have just the number, and then some flowery thing, and on the back they have, here is the logo of the Central Bank of Russia, Bank Rusty. You see at the back at the top it says 5 rubles, in the middle it says Bank Rusty, and in the bottom it says 2011, which is the year of minting. These are made out of, yeah, like I said before, these are made out of nickel, or some form of nickel. Alright, so let's have a look at the final coin here, which is the 10 ruble, which is a completely different design, because it's in gold, but you can see we still have the flowery thing, and we still have a number here, but there's some ridge type surface here. And on the back, here we see the 2-headed eagle emblem of the coat of arms of the Russian Federation. On the back it says, on the top here it says Russian Federation instead of 10 rubles. Because actually a new design, all of these changed, these coins here all changed from design from saying the number and then the coat of arms of the Bank of Russia to being just saying Russian Federation, and the coat of arms of actually the Russian Federation instead of the bank. So there we have it, those are the notes. As you've seen as I've been playing the video, I put the conversions into your currencies, different international currencies here. And you can see that these are really not worth that much. But these are actually used, these 4 here, and these 2 are not really used at all, and they're an awful nuisance. So let's take a look at the banknotes. So we can immediately see here there's 2 different designs of notes. So we have all these ones are from 1997. 10, 50, 100, 500, 1000 and 5000. And there's two different ones here, the 2000 and the 200, which are from 2017, they're very new. They have a brand new design. I've actually collected all the notes which are currently regularly used in circulation, and here's the 10, which is even quite rare. All the notes have the same kind of design, with monuments of Russia focused on a different city for every note. So for example, the 5 ruble note once existed and doesn't anymore. It was printed in 97 and only lasted for 4 years. I'll show you a picture right now. And it hasn't been issued since 2001. And the city on that note was Veliki Novgorod. It showed the Millennium of Russian Monument and the St. Sophia Cathedral, which are both in the city. And on the obverse side, it showed the Kremlin in Novgorod. So yeah, you get the idea. It's different monuments in a certain city. So we see here Krasnoyarsk, St. Petersburg, Moscow, for example. We'll go over those shortly. But before we go over the notes, let's take a look at the actual design. So I'll just grab the 5000 from up here. So here we see the obverse of the note. So let's have a look. In the top left, we see the Bank of Russia logo, as you can see here. And we have 5000, 5000, 5000 written 3 times. The top right here says Bilet Bankola C. So it's Bilet means ticket. So I guess it's a note of the Bank of Russia. And we see here 5000 rubles written in Russian. And this in the middle is the design specific for this note. The rest of them, as you can see, have a similar sort of design with the numbers and the same wording. Just the middle is a little bit different. And if we check the reverse here has this note specific design in the middle, 5000, 5000, 5000, written 3 times once again. And in the bottom left here, 5000 rubles written in Russian. So here we have a look at the basic design. Alright, so let's have a look at the notes I have. First here is a 10 ruble note. You can see this is very battered and very well used. And these are not being made anymore. In fact, they haven't been made for 8 years. So, yeah, so they're basically unused. Alright, so we can see on the front here Khabarovsk, which is a city in Russia. This shows the Komunalny bridge in Khabarovsk, that's here, and here this is the cathedral, no, it's a chapel. I forgot the name now, but it's something, Pyatnitsa Chapel in Krasnoyarsk. And on the other side, the reverse, we see a hydroelectric plant in Krasnoyarsk, which is quite famous here in Russia. Alright, so as you can see, this 10 ruble note is exactly equal to this 10 ruble coin here. This 10 ruble coin is much more common than this note. This is very rare to find, and I'm actually surprised I had one. Alright, let's move on to the 50 ruble note. This is based on the city of St. Petersburg, my first home in Russia. So we see on the front here, this is the rostral column structure in St. Petersburg, and in the background here we see, here at the back, we see the Petropavlovsk fortress, Peter and Paul fortress in St. Petersburg. And if I flip it over for some more St. Petersburg, here we see the old stock exchange, the old St. Petersburg Stock Exchange, and here the rostral columns in front of it. This is a very beautiful sight in real life. And as you can see on all the notes, it says here St. Petersburg, so we get a... If you don't know where the city is, you can just find out by having a look the name on the note, presuming you can read Cyrillic. Alright, let's have a look at the 100. Now, the 100 is based on the city of Moscow, and the city of Moscow and the city of St. Petersburg historically have a very strong rivalry, so it's a source of much pride that Moscow has a higher denomination than St. Petersburg for people from Moscow. So in here, the obverse side in the middle, we see the quadriga on the portico. This quadriga, there's 4 horses here. on the portico of the Bolshoi Theatre. Actually, I'm pretty sure this is the only banknote in the world to have a penis on it. I won't zoom in, but you can guess where it is. And if I look on the reverse, here we see the Bolshoi Theatre. Bolshoi Theatre, historical theatre for ballet and opera performances built in the 19th century, and here we can see it's written Moscow. Okay, let me have a look now at 500 rubles. We'll come to the new designs later. So this here, do you know what city this is? Well, it says right here, Arkhangelsk. Now, this is, the whole note is based on Arkhangelsk, the front and the back. So on the front we see the monuments to Peter the Great, a sailor ship, and the sea terminal at the back there. Peter the Great, of course, was the Tsar of Russia in the 17th and 18th century and founded St. Petersburg. On the other side, we see the Solovetsky Monastery, which is not in Arkhangelsk city, but it's close, it's in the same region. It's a fortified monastery located on the Solovetsky Islands in the White Sea in northern Russia. As you can see, it looks very beautiful. I would like to go one day. Alright, let's move on to 1000. So 1000, let me take it here. So the 1000 note is based on the city of Yaroslavl. As you can see here, zoom in, there we go, Yaroslavl. Okay, so this shows a monument here to Yaroslavl the Wise, who was a king, or as a prince, actually, and a cathedral in Yaroslavl, the Lady of Kazan Chapel. Yaroslav the Wise was 3 times a grand prince of Veliky Novgorod, and Kiev in the city of Yaroslavl is named after him. So let's have a look on the other side, the reverse side. Here we see another church, the St. John the Baptist Church in Yaroslavl, which was built in the 1670s, a very, very old church. Alright, so let's move on to the 5000. So this is one we saw before, briefly. So who's this on the front? Well, this is in Khabarovsk, in the far east of Russia. This is a monument to Nikolai Muravyov-Amursky, I think it's called, which is in Khabarovsk. He was a Russian diplomat who was massively responsible for the eastern expansion of the Russian Empire all the way to the Japanese Sea. On the other side we see some more of Khabarovsk. This is a bridge, the Khabarovsk Bridge over the Amur River. And this was built in 1999, so it's actually quite a modern thing to be on banknotes. As in lots of countries, many notes have their own particular nicknames. So the 100 note is often known as Sotka or Stolnik. The 500 note is known as Pyatikhatka. And what else? The 1000 is known as Shtuka or Kasar. And yeah, so they all have notes. We have nicknames in English too, like a tenner or a fiver. And they have different ones in the US for their notes, so it's pretty common. Alright, so let's have a look at the 2017 new notes. I'll take them both now, the 200 and the 2000. So we can see these two have a similar kind of design. In April 2016, the Central Bank of Russia announced that it'll have 2 new banknotes, the 200 and 2000, to be released in 2017, and they were. And in September 2016, a vote was held to decide which symbols and cities would be displayed on the new notes. So, yeah, so here we see them. They're much more modern, have much stronger security features than that of the old ones from 1997, which really do look old. Let's have a look at the design of them. I'll take the 2000 to just talk about the design features. In the top left, we see the logo of the Russian Federation. In the top right and the bottom left, we see the denomination. And in the bottom right, we see the denomination written. In the middle, we're seeing the design particular for this denomination. And in the bottom right, we even see a QR code. Very modern. On the reverse, what do we see here? We see the design particular for this note. We see the serial number written twice. We see the denomination twice, and we see written out here the denomination in numbers. And they also have on the new note a map, so you can see exactly where the new denomination is based. So let's actually talk about the individual designs of these two notes and not just in generalities. Let's start with the 200. So the 200, this is an internationally controversial one, as it depicts Sevastopol, which is in Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula. And in the obverse here we can see a view of Sevastopol, and in the middle this is the monument to sunken ships, which was designed by an Estonian sculptor named Adamson. Amandos Adamson or something like that, yeah. On the reverse we see Chersonesus, I think it's called, which is basically been nicknamed the Crimean Pompeii, so it's old ruins based in Crimea. And here we see in the top right the map of the Crimean Peninsula here with Sevastopol pointed out here. Yeah. Alright. Good. So that's the new 2000 note. 200 notes, sorry. I'll move on to the 2000 here. So we just saw this before, and I'll talk you through what's actually on here. So this here is the Ruski Bridge. Now this is based in East Russia. This is based in two different places in East Russia, which is important because of all these notes. They're all based in West Russia, apart from the 5000 up here, which is Khabarovsk. So this here is special. In the middle we see here the Ruski Bridge. Now, yeah, so here we see the Ruski Bridge. On the back we see the Vostochny Cosmodrome. So what are they? So this here, the Ruski Bridge, is a very new bridge, opened only in 2012, so very, very new. And it's the world's longest cable-stayed bridge, and it cost $1 billion to build. Quite controversially. And on the other side, as we said, this is the Vostochny Cosmodrome. It's a Russian spaceport. It's on the 51st parallel in Amur Oblast in the Russian Far East, so it's very close to here, it's very close to Vladivostok here. It's actually not even been fully completed yet, but there have been some space launches from here. There was one in April 2016, which was the first, and I think as of recording there's been 3, including one failed one. Space is a source of much pride for our Russians, as is reclaiming Crimea. So these two notes show some Russian pride, really. The current Cosmodrome spaceport that Russia uses is actually in Kazakhstan from the old Soviet Union, so they want to reduce their dependency on that and have their own, so here they have one. Alright. So I'd like to go over some of the security measures on the old and new notes. So let me grab, let's say 500 for the old notes. So here we see, and as you can immediately see, there's lots of different security measures. Some of them are very obvious and some of them are not so obvious. Let's go over the best ones. So first we see here the security thread, which says the denomination on it. So here it says 500. It's very clear from both sides. So this is a little bit reversed. A little bit? It's completely reversed. Alright, so we can also see here the printing. Now, here where it says Bank of Russia, Bilet Bank of Russia. This is all, I don't know if you can hear this. It's lifted up much higher than the actual paper, so you can really feel it. This is good for blind people, for example, and obviously for checking if it's fakes. There's also watermarks on all of them. So here, if I just lift this up to the light, you can see this guy here is also here in the watermark. And if I take, for example, a 100, which shows the Bolshoi Theatre, if you lift this up here, you can see the Bolshoi Theatre. That's also a good way to check. I'll show you another example. You see this guy here, he's also here. So yeah. Watermarks, that's the third one. So the security thread, the raised printing, and the watermarks. What else? So the lines and dots as well, so they help. Let me grab, let's get this one. So we see some lines here, some lines here, which are raised, which help visually impaired people decide which note it is and if they're real. Because you can see, if you compare it to this one, to 1000, it's slightly different. And they're raised quite loud, really, if you scratch them. So very easy to tell if it's real or fake because of that. So that's number 4. So there's the security thread, the printing, the watermarks, and the lines. There's also these dots here, which are very, very raised. In fact, it's very easy to tell if those are fake or real because of those. And the 5th one I'd say for normal people just to check are little micro holes that are in it. So let me see. Let me grab, which one should I grab? Yeah, I'll grab this one. So if we lift this up and we look through here, we can see here there's the watermark here, which says 100. There's also little holes. Can't really see it so well in this slide. 1 second. Yeah, okay, I was looking in the wrong place. Silly me. Yeah, so there's little holes. Oh, let me see if I can lift it up to the light a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. There you can see them. Little holes which say 500 here. And we have it also on the 1000. I was stupid not to see it before, but there we go. It says 1000, you can easily see it. That's a really good other security measure. So say if you're in a taxi and you're getting change and you want to see if they're real or fake coins, notes, then those are the 5 things I would recommend to check. Now let's have a look at some of the new ones. So let me grab, let's say, I don't know, I'll grab the 200. So the new 200 is a lot more advanced and has many more different security features. So they come in 4 separate segments, really. First off is touch. So touch, the 3 lines at the end are raised. So if we see them here, these 3 lines, they're raised. The denomination is also raised. This here, Billiet Banco C, also raised, and there's also some lines here which are raised. These are a good way to check for fakes. Secondly, after touch is tilting. Now, we see here, I don't know how well we'll be able to see this on camera, but if you see the security thread here, the colour actually moves slightly. Yeah, I think you can see it, yeah. And the black and white sort of moves when you tilt it. That's a good way also to check if it's fake. It's not just a normal silver line. And also, when you see there's a ruble sign here in the bottom left, let me try and show it if it's going to focus. Doesn't want to focus. Yeah, you can't really see it here, but there's a ruble sign, and if you twist it 90 degrees, it looks a little bit different. I can't really show you that on video. And also, when you tilt the 200, you tilt it, it says 200 written underneath. After touch and tilting, there's also something called loop. Now loop has the small, repeated, unreadable details to the naked eye, which you can't do yourself, but with a microscope you could. So there's lots of these here, including Sevastopol, which is written under the 200 at the bottom. Let's try and get some better light for this. Yeah, you really can't see it even in naked eye, so it's impossible on video. And also 200 rubles written here, very small, in very small detail. In the top right, yeah, it's not going to focus, yeah. This here, this box, this little green box says 200, 200, 200 repeatedly. So yeah, these are really hard to read, but they're very good to test if something's fake, if you have a microscope or something. Alright, and finally, light. So this is light, which is similar to the last few, which is here, the security thread, which is very easy to see, and the watermark there, which we have here, the same monument as we see in the middle, and the 200, we see the denomination. So yeah. Now, before anybody asks the questions, what's this QR code for in the bottom right? Is that for security? Not really. The QR code is a link. It links you to the Bank of Russia website, where there's detailed information about the artistic design and also the security features. So I suppose you could use it to learn about security if you haven't learned enough today. If you're on the Russian App Store, I recommend downloading this app, Banknoty, which has an identification photograph thing where you can take a photo of your nose and it says if it's real or not. And it also has some information about the banknotes, including some of the technology I've spoken about. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Drop any questions if you have any other questions about Russian banknotes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any other video ideas, I really appreciate if you drop them down in the comments to give me inspiration for stuff to do in the future. Thanks for watching.